The aliens ringed her in semicircles, tiers upon tiers of species that had ruled star systems for ages. A hulking reptilian warlord leaned on a spear taller than her entire frame. An insectoid bureaucrat clicked its mandibles, as though already bored. Near the back, a vaporous elder drifted in a sealed orb, speaking only through vibrating light. Their laughter was not in unison, but it formed an orchestra of ridicule that filled the air with a mockery thicker than smoke. "Humans," one barked, his scales glinting a sickly green. "They bruise like fruit, and yet they demand seats at the table of empires. Look at this one. So fragile, so breakable." His claw tapped the spear haft like a metronome to his disdain. The insectoid hissed. "They begged for mercy at the mining moons. They cried on the fields of Seraph. And this one dares to posture? What name do you give yourself, little mammal?" She lifted her chin. Her lips bore the faint swelling of a strike already delivered, though she had not winced when it landed. Her voice came soft, almost weary, with a lilt of mock politeness that slid between their derision like a blade through silk. "Call me Baba Yaga." The name rippled across the tiers like static. A few whispered it, uncertain if it was a code or a joke. Most laughed. "She names herself after a myth," croaked the gaseous elder, glowing faintly within its orb. "How quaint. As though legends can matter to us." A smaller alien, some amphibious functionary who could not resist cruelty when it was safe, slithered closer and slapped her across the face with a slick palm. "Your myths cannot protect you." She let her head tilt with the force, hair falling across one eye, and then she smiled. Not a defiant smile, not even cruel, just a small curve of lips that looked too calm for a prisoner. "Please," she said lightly, "don't hit me again." They roared with laughter. The reptilian slammed his tail against the marble floor. The insectoid trilled so hard its carapace rattled. Even the gaseous elder shimmered with mirth. To them it was weakness, the whimper of a cornered thing. Her smile lingered as the echoes died. The tribunal resumed its show. They spoke of humanity's insignificance, about colonies that had fallen, about Earth's backward technologies. She listened with her eyes lowered, but her gaze traced every arch, every vent, every guard's hand near a weapon. The chamber was a theater for them, but it was a map for her. One alien leaned forward, a feathered strategist with a voice sharp as flint. "Tell us, little myth, why did your kind resist at all? You could have lived as our servants, your bodies useful, your voices silent. Why fight battles you cannot win?" She tilted her head, brushing a lock of dark hair from her cheek. "Because we find silence boring." Some chuckled at the audacity, but others bristled. There was something in her tone, not arrogance, not pleading, but something unervingly casual, as if she were the one humoring them. The amphibian struck her again, harder. Her head snapped to the side. A thin line of blood traced her lip. The crowd erupted in cruel delight. She dabbed the corner of her mouth against her shoulder, then looked up with eyes so calm they should have unsettled them all. "Really, don't hit me again. It makes things messy." A ripple of irritation passed among them. They were used to begging, screaming, defiance that could be crushed. They were not used to courtesy delivered like a warning dressed as request. The insectoid bureaucrat scuttled forward, its mandibles clacking. "Messy? What will you do? Mammal bleed on our floors." Her gaze slid across the tiers, her voice soft as if sharing a secret. "Bleeding is only messy for those who think they can't drown in it." The words hung in the air, faintly humorous, faintly absurd. The chamber laughed again, though thinner this time, the sound holding a nervous edge. The reptilian warlord rose, towering. "She dares to speak riddles. Your species is weak. We could break every bone in your body before you take a breath to beg." Baba Yaga met his eyes. There was no defiance there, no rage, just a polite patience that somehow felt sharper than any blade. "And yet you keep talking about breaking bones instead of doing it. Almost as if you need the sound of your threats more than the reality." A hush fell across the nearest tier. The warlord snarled, but did not strike. The insectoid chattered in disapproval, eager for punishment. The gaseous elder hummed, contemplative. as if feeling a faint shift in the room's gravity. She sat straighter, the cuffs biting into her skin, and let her gaze sweep over them. You keep saying humans are fragile. Maybe you're right. But let me tell you a truth we keep quiet. Her voice dropped until the chamber leaned in unconsciously. Fragile things learn faster than strong ones. We adapt. We sharpen. We smile, so you never see the teeth behind it. A murmur swept the gallery. The amphibian raised its hand for another strike, but the elder in the orb suddenly spoke, its lights flickering like a storm. Wait. Silence pressed down. The elder's tone was almost uneasy. That name, Baba Yaga. I have heard it before. Whispers from mercenaries who met humans on the rim. A tale of a figure who walks unshackled through slaughter. The reptilian sneered. Old campfire nonsense. The elder's orb glowed harder. Perhaps. Perhaps not. Her smile deepened, just enough to show the edge of a tooth. The insectoid screeched and slammed a clawed limb against the floor. Enough riddles. She is no legend. She is meat. Break her, and let the galaxy see her weakness. Guards stepped forward. The air grew heavier. Baba Yaga exhaled slowly, her shoulders loose, as though she were about to rise from a chair at a cafe rather than from the heart of an alien tribunal. She rolled her neck, the faintest of motions, and then let her eyes half close. Her lips formed words, so quiet that only the first tier heard them. 7 minutes. What? The insectoid demanded, mandibles jerking. She opened her eyes again, brighter now, like embers catching wind. That's how long it will take before none of you are standing. Laughter broke out once more, too loud, too forced, covering unease with bravado. The reptilian slammed his spear against the floor again, booming. 7 minutes? You will be dead in one. Her voice carried easily through the chamber, unhurried, calm, as if she were describing the weather. Then don't hit me again, because if you do, the clock starts. The tribunal shook with cruel amusement. Their jeers filled the chamber, but in the pause between roars, a hush crawled across their ranks, seated by the way she sat, composed, serene, as though every outcome already belonged to her. Somewhere in the tiers, an alien guard frowned and checked the vents. Another noticed the faint blink of a panel that shouldn't have been lit. A third caught the calm in her eyes and felt his stomach twist. The amphibian laughed the loudest, desperate to drown the unease, and raised its slick hand again. Her gaze flicked to it, her lips still curved in that small, patient smile. The tribunal leaned forward, eager for the blow. And in that suspended breath, with laughter still echoing, the atmosphere in the chamber shifted. Not loud, not obvious, but like the first crack of ice before a river breaks loose. The slap fell, wet and heavy, ringing across the chamber. Her cheek turned with the blow, strands of dark hair snapping like whips around her face. The amphibian croaked in triumph, expecting another polite plea, another timid protest. But when her head straightened, when her eyes lifted, there was nothing fragile left. The smile had hardened into something precise, patient, merciless. 7 minutes, she whispered. The words dropped into silence, like stones into deep water. Then sound returned all at once. Jeers, commands, guards stepping forward with weapons drawn. The reptilian warlord bared his teeth in savage glee, his spear rising to strike. The insectoid bureaucrat shrilled orders, mandibles clattering in panic and delight. She moved before any of them understood that the clock had begun. The cuffs snapped with a twist of her wrists, alloy screaming as hidden seams gave way. The sound alone froze the first guard in disbelief. She caught his weapon as it rose, guiding its arc past her body and into the chest of the alien beside him. A gout of emerald blood fountained into the light. The tribunal gasped, the laughter dying like candles snuffed in wind. The reptilian roared and lunged, his spear descending with brutal force. She slid beneath it, using his own weight to pivot him forward, then kicked the haft, so the point buried itself into the marble floor. The impact shook the chamber. His chest was open for a breath too long, and in that breath she was already there, fingers curling around his throat. She spoke softly, almost apologetic. "You shouldn't have hit me. Her grip crushed cartilage. His body collapsed, tail thrashing in useless spasms. The insectoid screeched for the guards. Blades drawn, they rushed her from both sides. She vaulted over the reptilian's fallen bulk, catching one blade mid-swing. Her elbow shattered the wielder's exoskeleton in a crack like splintering wood. With the weapon freed, she spun, carving through the second guard's abdomen in a single fluid arc. The amphitheater became a storm of screams. Some alien dignitaries scrambled backward, wings fluttering, orbs vibrating, robes flaring as they tried to escape. Others stood transfixed, unable to reconcile what they saw, a human prisoner, bleeding from her lip, carving through their protectors with a serenity that bordered on grace. 7 minutes, she repeated, louder this time, her voice carrying over the din. The vaporous elder pulsed within its orb, lights frantic. Contain her. Kill her. She is only one. But it didn't look like only one. It looked like inevitability given flesh. The feathered strategist swooped down from his tier, wings spread wide, claws glinting with hooked metal extensions. He slashed with precision, aiming for arteries. She let him cut the fabric of her sleeve, nothing more. Her hand snapped to his wing joint, twisting it until bone cracked. His shriek was cut short when she used his body as a shield, catching a barrage of plasma bolts meant for her. His corpse sagged in her arms before she let it drop, feathered head lolling. The smell of scorched feathers filled the chamber. The amphibian who had struck her gaped, his moist skin beating with sweat. He took a step back, then another, until his heels caught the dais. Impossible. You can't. Humans can't. She advanced with the slow inevitability of tidewater, blood dripping from the stolen blade in her hand. We can't? You keep saying that. You mistake politeness for weakness. You mistake patience for surrender. That's how predators survive, by letting their prey think it's safe. The guards regrouped, forming a semicircle, weapons raised. Plasma hummed, claws clicked, spears lowered. She breathed in, deep and steady, and the world narrowed. Her movements became a blur. Plasma bolts seared air, but found only walls. She cut one guard down at the knee, wrenched his weapon free, and turned the energy burst into the chest of another. She used bodies as shields, the air filling with alien screams and acrid smoke. Every second stretched, heavy with inevitability. She did not fight wildly. She fought like someone following a score already written, each step and strike rehearsed in silence. The tribunal wasn't watching a battle. They were watching a demonstration. The gaseous elder dimmed in its orb, horror radiating like cold. This is not chance. This is design. This is strategy. Her smile was almost kind. Now you're starting to see. Blood pooled on the marble floor, running into cracks that glowed faintly with ancient inlays. Aliens scrambled higher up the tiers, pushing each other in panic. Some pleaded for order, but their voices cracked. The insectoid bureaucrat clung to its lectern, shrieking incoherently as if noise alone could hold her back. She leapt onto the dais in a single bound, the sound of her landing echoing like a gavel strike. The insectoid lashed with serrated limbs, but she was already inside its guard. Her blade pierced the seam of its carapace, driving straight through until green ichor sprayed across the lectern. The bureaucrat spasmed, mandibles twitching, then stilled. She let the body drop and turned her gaze outward. For minutes, the chamber erupted. Dignitaries stampeded for exits that no longer opened. Doors locked. Panels blinked red. Systems jammed. Somewhere deep beneath the structure, human fingers had already threaded into their networks. This was no prisoner's accident. This was invasion written as theater. The amphibian fell to his knees, hands trembling. Please. I didn't know. I only. She tilted her head, the blade glistening with alien fluids. You should have listened. I told you not to hit me. Her strike was swift, almost merciful. The reptilian guards roared, grief twisting their battle cries, and charged in pairs. She flowed between them, a blur of elbows, knees, steel. One dropped with his skull caved in, another with his throat sliced open. Their roars became choked gurgles, echoing off the marble walls until they faded into silence. Every eye left alive watched in horror. What had begun as entertainment now looked like prophecy fulfilled. Humanity, mocked for fragility, was revealing its true costume, an apex predator hidden in plain sight. She stood amidst the bodies, chest rising and falling in calm rhythm. Blood painted her sleeves, her cheeks, even streaked across her smile. But her eyes remained steady, alive with calculation. The elder's orb flickered like a dying star. This cannot be one woman. This is war given form. She met its glow with cool politeness. Not war. Lesson. 2 minutes remained. Guards hesitated now, shifting nervously, weapons trembling. None wanted to be the next to fall. They looked to the tribunal for orders, but the tribunal itself was collapsing into chaos. Every word spoken over the past decade about human weakness now curdled into fear. She advanced slowly, deliberately, stepping over corpses, her boots echoing in rhythm with their pounding hearts. The feathered strategist's blood trailed behind her like a painter's brushstroke. She raised her stolen blade high enough for the light to glint across it. "You wanted a myth," she said, her voice carrying clear. "Congratulations. You made one real." The gaseous elder dimmed further, its glow shrinking in terror. "Stop her. She is death itself." She smirked. "Close. I'm just human." And with that, she lunged, closing the gap to the last cluster of guards. Steel and plasma collided in a frenzy. Sparks showered the dais. Limbs tore, claws shattered. Alien cries blended into one hideous chorus. Every second ticked toward her promise. Bodies fell. Blood pooled. Weapons clattered to marble. Then silence. She stood alone in the center of the tribunal, surrounded by ruin. 7 minutes gone. The chamber that had mocked her now smelled of smoke, blood, and fear. Survivors huddled in the far tiers, trembling, eyes wide with incomprehension. Her chest rose with steady breaths. She wiped her blade against her sleeve, smearing crimson into dark cloth. She glanced toward the elder's orb, glowing faintly like the last ember of a dying fire. 7 minutes, she said softly, almost gently, as though confirming a lesson learned. The elder quivered. "What are you?" She looked at them all, the survivors, the trembling dignitaries, the guards who dared not step closer. Her smile returned, small and polite, but edged now with something they could finally recognize. Baba Yaga. The orb dimmed completely, as if light itself feared her. Above them, deep within the infrastructure, unseen systems shifted. Panels flickered. A faint tremor ran through the marble floor. Those with sharper senses felt first, the sound of engines, the signal of something vast settling into orbit above their world. She raised her eyes toward the ceiling as though listening to distant footsteps. And then she whispered, right on time. Smoke curled through the tribunal chamber, weaving between toppled bodies and broken marble. The floor gleamed with streaks of blood in colors the human spectrum was never meant to see: green, violet, a strange silver that shimmered like oil under fractured light. Baba Yaga stood in the stillness she had created, blade loose in her hand, eyes sweeping across the tiers of survivors who pressed themselves against the walls as though stone could shield them. Above, the faint tremor deepened. The chamber lights flickered once, twice, then steadied on a dimmer glow. Those who had served in war recognized it before their minds allowed them to speak it. The pulse of engines, vast and deliberate, settling into orbit. The gaseous elder flickered weakly inside its orb. "It is a fleet," it whispered, light quivering like a candle in wind. "Human vessels. They are here to extract her." She tilted her head, amused at the assumption. "Extract me?" "No." She rested the blade against her shoulder, as though it were no heavier than a cane. "They're not here for me. I was already in." The survivors blinked, struggling to understand. The feathered strategist second in command staggered from behind a pillar, wing bent, voice hoarse with panic. "You, one woman, broke into the tribunal. How? This world is fortress. The skies are sealed." Her smile was calm, polite, almost pitying. You think doors keep humans out? That's adorable. She let the silence hang, and in it, the systems of the chamber hummed in betrayal. Doors that should have opened for evacuation remained locked. Consoles that once glowed with imperial authority now pulsed with alien symbols overwritten by human code. Even the air itself whispered treachery, the vents sighing a faint mist that settled invisible onto alien skin, a humidity too subtle for them to notice, too specific for them to survive. The insectoid bureaucrat's body twitched at her feet, ichor still dripping, mandibles frozen mid-scream. She nudged it aside with her boot and looked up at the tears again. You've ruled for centuries because you believed strength was permanence. You thought fear was enough. But humans, fragile, breakable humans, learned something different. We learned that permanence is a story people tell themselves before the tide changes. The gaseous elder dimmed further, horrified recognition seeping from its glow. You are not accident. This was infiltration. Finally, she said, as though congratulating a child for solving a riddle. Yes, you built your fortress, your tribunal, your empire. We built an invitation. You brought me inside yourselves. And now you can't get me out. Panic surged in the tears. Some tried to summon guards, forgetting the silence outside meant no one was left. Others clawed at the sealed doors, their shrieks rising in cacophony. The amphitheater that had been a stage for ridicule was now a cage. She walked slowly to the center, boots clicking through blood. Humans don't fight fair. We don't fight by your rules. We fight by results. And we never ever show our teeth until the last moment. The reptilian warlord's kin, a massive female with scales like iron, slammed her fist against the railing. This is murder. Treachery. The galaxy will burn you for this. Baba Yaga looked up at her, eyes unblinking. You've been burning us for decades. Consider this reciprocity. The woman roared, leaping from the tier, claws bared. She landed heavy, the marble groaning beneath her weight. Baba Yaga did not retreat. She sidestepped, precise, and the blade sang once through air and scale. The warlord's kin fell in two uneven halves, her lifeblood spilling across the tribunal floor. The sound broke what courage remained. Dignitaries wailed. Some fainted. Others began chanting prayers to gods that had never listened. She crouched beside the fallen, wiping her blade clean against the scaled hide. Humans don't worship gods that ignore us, she murmured, loud enough for all to hear. We make our own. The elder orb shivered. Your fleets, they are here for conquest. Not conquest, she corrected, standing again, voice sharp as flint. Correction. A young alien, small and bright-skinned, raised trembling hands. Why? Why target us? We only laughed. Her gaze fell on the creature, and for the first time her expression softened, though not with mercy. You think laughter is harmless, but laughter at the expense of the weak is the first spark of cruelty. And cruelty, unchecked, becomes empire. The silence that followed was heavier than screams. One of the consoles sparked, spraying blue fire. A projection bloomed above it, human faces, grainy with static but unmistakable. Officers in dark uniforms, their eyes sharp, their smiles too calm for those orchestrating genocide. The chamber filled with a human voice, rich and measured. Status report. Baba Yaga glanced at the projection. 7 minutes. Tribunal neutralized. Confirmation received, the officer replied. Orbital lock engaged. Containment in progress. The transmission ended, leaving only the soft crackle of fire and the trembling breaths of survivors. The alien stared at her, disbelief curdling into dread. This wasn't rescue. This wasn't random vengeance. This was operation. The feathered strategist second in command staggered forward, wings dragging, desperation wild in his eyes. Why tell us this? Why not kill us quietly? She met him with that same faint smile, the smile that had unsettled them from the beginning. Because fear that spreads is stronger than blood that spills. You will tell whoever's left what happened here. You will describe the human who smiled while she killed you. You will whisper the name Baba Yaga until it grows teeth in your own children's dreams. The second-in-command lunged, claws desperate, and she ended him with a single upward slice. His body fell at her feet, wings twitching. She looked up at the tears, her eyes gleaming. Who wants to be the messenger? No one answered. The silence itself trembled. She turned her blade lazily, examining the reflection of alien blood. No volunteers? That's a shame. I suppose I'll choose. The gaseous elder flickered violently. This is slaughter. You make humanity monster. Her gaze cut to the orb, sharp as a blade's edge. We didn't make ourselves monsters. You did. Every whip, every chain, every world you stripped bare. This is the echo coming back. The mist in the vents thickened now, subtle but certain. Some survivors coughed, their skin darkening in blotches, their bodies shuddering with the first signs of collapse. The chemicals were human-designed, targeted to alien biology with merciless precision. The elders' orb pulsed faintly, realization dawning. You poisoned us. No, she said gently, almost kindly. I taught you a lesson. You mistook weakness for truth. You mistook kindness for leash. Humanity smiles because it's easier than showing you the teeth. But when you strike us, when you laugh at us, well, then you see what we really are. Bodies began to convulse in the tears, voices choking into silence. The survivors, who had mocked her, slapped her, called her fragile, now collapsed under the invisible weight of humanity's preparation. The elder dimmed, light waning to near extinction. What will you do now? She stepped closer, her shadow falling across the orb. Now, I wait. For what? The elder rasped, flickering like dying starlight. Her smile widened, the most dangerous expression yet. For you to understand that humans never fight the battle in front of them. We fight the one 10 steps ahead. The floor shook again, this time stronger, as the first tremors of orbital bombardment brushed the atmosphere. The chamber ceiling groaned with the promise of collapse. The elder's light flickered desperately. Your fleets, they will destroy us all. She crouched, her lips close to the orb's surface, her voice almost affectionate. Not destroy, reshape. This galaxy has lived too long under your illusion of permanence. We're here to remind you how fragile permanence really is. The orb shuddered, light guttering. You cannot hold the galaxy. Too many, too strong. Her eyes gleamed with terrible calm. We don't need to hold it. We only need to make sure no one ever forgets us again. The elder dimmed to near nothing, its glow faint as a dying ember. Around them, survivors collapsed, their bodies writhing in silence. The tribunal that had once laughed was dissolving into nothingness. She stood, straightened her shoulders, and lifted her gaze to the ceiling where the faint vibrations of human warships whispered like distant thunder. Her blade dripped alien ichor, pooling at her feet. She raised it once more, a salute to the dead who didn't yet know they were gone. And in the hush that followed, she whispered 3 words that froze every trembling survivor, still breathing. We're already inside. The chamber lights flickered. The ceiling groaned. Somewhere above, the sound of metal rending atmosphere drew closer. The tribunal chamber trembled as the first thunder of the fleet's weapons rippled through the atmosphere. Dust fell from the vaulted ceiling, drifting down like gray snow over the corpses sprawled in grotesque stillness. The air carried the scent of smoke, blood, and ozone, sharp enough to sting. Baba Yaga stood at the center of it all, blade at her side, eyes lifted as though listening to a symphony only she could hear. The survivors clung to shadows, too few to matter, too broken to resist. Their voices were hushed, strangled by the weight of inevitability pressing down from the skies. Each vibration through the marble floor was another reminder that the fortress above them, the empire they thought eternal, was being dismantled piece by piece. One alien, a young scaled diplomat barely grown into adulthood, staggered forward, trembling hands outstretched. His voice cracked between fear and pleading. Please. Enough. Spare us. Tell your people to stop. We understand now. We see what you are. Her gaze slid to him, calm and steady, though the faintest trace of softness touched her expression. She stepped closer, her boots leaving prints in violet blood. Do you? She asked quietly. Do you really see? The young one nodded desperately, his tail dragging on the floor. Yes, humanity is predator. You hide behind smiles, behind weakness. You wait. His voice faltered. We will never strike you again. She leaned in, her whisper cold as steel. You already did. His eyes widened, but the blade flashed once, quick and merciful, and he fell silently among the rest. The gaseous elder still flickered faintly within its orb, the last of the tribunal's authority, glowing weak and pale. You've proven strength. You've proven cruelty. But you cannot hold what you've taken. Empires crumble under their own weight. Her lips curved into that small, patient smile. We don't want an empire. We don't need to hold. We only need to be remembered. The orb quivered, its light dimming further. Fear is not legacy. Fear is the only legacy that doesn't fade, she said, her voice sharper now. You've ruled for centuries with fear. You believed yourselves eternal. All we've done is show you that eternity bends when humans step into the room. The elder pulsed once, as if in refusal, then dimmed almost to darkness. Its voice was a faint hum, a whisper. You will damn yourselves. She straightened, lifting her blade, blood drying on its edge. Maybe, but damnation has its uses. The tremors above deepened into a steady thunder. Through cracks in the ceiling, light flared as the first bombardments struck the surface of the city outside. Alien towers fell in rippling waves, each collapse echoing like the toll of a bell. Survivors in the chamber pressed themselves harder against the walls, eyes wild with terror, listening to the death of their civilization. She watched them with an almost clinical calm. This is not just vengeance, she said, voice carrying through the chamber like a verdict. This is reminder. Every empire that believes it cannot fall needs one. From the shattered dais, a dignitary too wounded to flee raised his head, eyes bleeding silver tears. His voice rasped with fury. You think yourselves gods. She walked toward him slowly, each step deliberate. No, gods demand worship. Humans only demand memory. The difference is simple. You can ignore gods. You cannot ignore what hunts you in the dark. His breath rattled as he spat ichor onto the floor. Then you are beasts. Her smile sharpened, and you laughed at beasts. The blade rose and fell, and the chamber grew quieter still. The fleet's voice returned in the form of a transmission blooming above the cracked consoles. A human admiral appeared in ghostly light, his uniform crisp despite the static. His tone was calm, efficient, carrying no triumph, only purpose. Containment at 90%. Resistance minimal. Orbital sectors secured. Baba Yaga lifted her chin toward the projection. The tribunal is finished. The admiral's eyes narrowed slightly, as though studying her through the distortion. Confirmation received. You may begin Phase 2. The transmission ended without ceremony, leaving only silence thick enough to crush lungs. Phase 2. The words hung in the chamber, heavy, ominous. The survivors understood then that death had been only the prelude. What followed was worse. She turned back to them, her expression unreadable, as though she weighed what message to leave behind. You thought humanity feared war, that we were too soft, too breakable, too eager for peace. But peace was only camouflage. War is where we remember ourselves. Her eyes swept across their faces, imprinting fear deeper than any blade could cut. And you will remember us. Not because we conquer, not because we rule, but because every time you think of striking a human, you will hear my voice counting down. She raised her free hand, fingers curling as though winding a clock. 7 minutes. That's all it took. A myth to you. A warning to those who survive. The chamber groaned as the bombardments outside reached crescendo. Walls cracked, light fixtures fell, marble split beneath the weight of destruction. The survivors screamed, their voices drowned beneath the thunder of falling stone. She stood unmoving, blade steady, watching them with eyes that no longer looked human at all, but something colder, older, as though history itself had stepped into flesh. The elder's orb, dim as a dying ember, flickered one last time. Baba Yaga, what lesson do you teach?" Her gaze fell on it, her voice soft now, almost sorrowful. "That humanity smiles not because we are kind, but because it hides the teeth. That we are polite not because we are harmless, but because it keeps the hunt clean. And that if you strike us, if you laugh at us, we will show you what we really are." The orb guttered and died, its light extinguished. The chamber's ceiling split open, daylight crashing through in violent beams. The sound of collapsing towers roared into the hall, carrying smoke, flame, and the echo of dying empires. Dust whirled around her, catching the light until she looked less like flesh and more like a silhouette carved into eternity. She lowered her blade, letting it hang loose at her side. Her lips curved into that faint, terrible smile once more. Lesson complete. But the survivors would not forget. They would carry the tale. That was the point. Humanity had no need to shout its victory. Whispers spread faster, more insidious. Fear, once seated, grew without tending. She walked slowly to the sealed doors, the metal hissing as if recognizing her. They parted with obedient silence, revealing the city outside, a skyline burning, towers crumbling, the horizon painted with a fire of orbital strikes. Human vessels hung above like black suns, blotting out the sky. She stepped into the ruin, boots crunching on glass and ash. The wind carried heat, smoke, the faint cries of a dying world. She inhaled deeply, exhaled slowly, as though grounding herself in the moment. Behind her, the tribunal chamber caved in with a thunderous crash, burying the bodies, the blood, the illusions of permanence. She did not look back. Ahead, a dropship descended, its silhouette sharp against the flames. The ramp lowered, human soldiers within standing at ease, their faces calm, almost casual, as though they were greeting an old friend rather than retrieving the architect of an empire's collapse. She walked toward them unhurried, blade still in hand, shoulders loose, eyes unshaken. At the base of the ramp, she paused, turning once more to the burning skyline. Her voice was barely above a whisper, carried only by the wind, but it was enough. Enough for those who survived, hidden in shadows, to hear and remember. "Next time," she said, her smile cutting through smoke, "don't hit me. Saves everyone trouble." The ramp closed behind her. The dropship lifted, engines roaring, carrying her away from the ruin she had crafted in exactly 7 minutes. The city burned. The empire screamed. And across the galaxy, whispers already began to spread of a human assassin with a name stolen from myth, a woman who smiled while she ended empires, a lesson carved into the marrow of history. Baba Yaga. The words carried farther than fire.